Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Florida Museum 360 virtual field trip experience through the Florida Fossils Evolution of Life and Land exhibit. We're going to take you back through geological time to understand Florida's history by viewing its fossil record. Today's event is brought to you by the Florida Museum of Natural History and the UF Thompson Earth Systems scientists in every Florida school program. Located on the University of Florida Gainesville campus, the Florida Museum is one of the nation's top 5 history museums in the United States. Its mission, to combine research, preservation, and interpretation of both biological diversity and cultural heritage. To support the effort to contain the spread of COVID-19, the Florida Museum of Natural History is temporarily closed to the public. So what better way to continue to share the museum's collections and exhibits than to take a 360 virtual field trip? The Scientist in Every Florida School program is a free program housed within the university's Thompson Earth Systems Institute. The SEPS program connects and builds long-term collaborative partnerships between teachers and scientists in order to bring current scientific research and big data into the Florida classrooms and beyond. Today's virtual field trip will be led by Dr. Bruce MacFadden. Dr. McFadden is the curator of fossil vertebrates and the director of the Thompson Earth Systems Institute. TESSI's mission is to advance communication and public understanding of current research discoveries about Earth's natural systems, air, water, land, and life in Florida and beyond. He's also been part of the UF faculty since 1977 and is a distinguished professor. He received his bachelor's degree from Cornell University and his PhD in geology from Columbia University with a specialization in paleontology. To kick things off today, we're going to have Alberto, our museum outreach coordinator, guiding us through the museum along with Dr. McFadden. Alberto, take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. So this is Alberto, and I will be your captain for today's journey. I will be navigating us through the fossil hall and with Bruce as our guide. And right now, actually, I guess we are virtually standing here right in front of the Hall of Florida Fossils. And just to tell you a little bit about it, so there are about 500 fossils in this hall, okay? All of them are from Florida. More than 90% of them are real, and many were found within 100 miles of Gainesville, okay? Sadly, we won't be able to see all of them because there are just too many of them, but Bruce, he'll handle that. He's basically gonna highlight all of the favorites, basically. So get ready to go on a ride in which we will span about 45 million years of Florida's history. And this is really the best and really the only place in the world to do that. And it is the Florida Museum of Natural History. So I'm going to start off by asking Bruce, what was your role in the creation of this exhibit?
Well, thank you, Stephanie and Alberto. Thanks everyone for coming today. I'm very excited to take this tour of the fossil hall with you. I was involved as the scientific curator in charge of providing the stories and the content and selecting many of the fossils that we'll see on display in this exhibit.
Awesome. Okay. So what can you tell us about this piece right here, which is the first thing you see when you arrive to the Florida Fossil Hall?
Yeah, so these are 6 reconstructed fossil shark jaws using individual fossilized teeth and putting them into fiberglass shark jaws. These reconstructions are really awesome. They're one of a kind. In particular, the one that I'm mostly interested in is this Megalodon, the giant school bus size shark that you see on the right-hand side here. And I should say, before we take a close-up of a Megalodon tooth, I want to say that all of these jaws were reconstructed by Dr. Clifford Jeremiah of Jacksonville, and he donated all of these to put on display as the entree to our fossil hall. So can we take a closer look, please, at the Megalodon tooth?
Sure. Here we go.
Yeah, so the picture, here's a picture of a Megalodon tooth in black on the left, and it is about just over 13 centimeters long, and that's about just over 5 inches long. It's not the largest Megalodon tooth ever known. Some get to be as long as 7 inches long. But this tooth is alongside, in the white teeth, 2 modern great white shark teeth. So Megalodon, relative to the modern great white, was really, really large. And estimates of the length of Megalodon, I say, was like a school bus, probably around anywhere from 50 to 65 feet long when it lived in the ancient seas.
Wow, that's amazing. And there are no megalodons now, right? We just want to make sure that that's a fact. There are no megalodons.
That is correct. There are
Good.
no megalodons living today.
All right. Okay, so I guess let's start walking into the Florida Fossil Hall. And, as we start walking virtually into the Fossil Hall, I actually have a question that I want to ask our audience here. As we move in, we're walking slowly here, do you guys think, are we going to see any dinosaur fossils in here? So you can please answer that question, simple yes or no. You could do that on Facebook or on the Zoom chat. And let's see, I want to see our answers. We see some yes, some no. I'll definitely ask Bruce to confirm. Let's see, I have lots of no's, a couple of yes. All right. Okay, well, let's see. So Bruce, are we going to see some dinosaurs in the Florida Fossil Hall?
Unfortunately, I hate to disappoint, but the answer is no. The reason is that dinosaurs lived on the Earth until about 65 million years ago when they became extinct. The first evidence of the fossil record in Florida starts at 45 million years ago during what we call the Eocene Epoch. So what that means is dinosaurs had been extinct for 20 million years before the fossil record of Florida even started.
All right. So, and it looks like actually right now, so it looks like we're like in an underwater scene. Is that right, Bruce?
That's correct. We're walking down a ramp into what's called the Eocene Sea, which represents the kind of life that we know of in Florida about 45 million years ago. And Alberto, you said that there are about 500 real fossil specimens on display in this exhibit, and this is a display case showing some of these great fossils. Now, a fossil, you might say that, well, some of these look like shells that I might collect on the beach today. And that's correct because they're related to some of the modern animals the shells that you find on the beaches today. But these animals are fossilized, which means they've been turned to stone. They're much heavier and more durable than a modern day shell. And that's how we can determine that they're indeed fossilized.
All right. And since we are doing a 360 tour, I just want to point out that there are things up on the ceiling in the Florida Fossil Hall. So what are we looking at right now, Bruce?
Yeah, that's an ancient toothed whale that lived in the Eocene seas about 45 million years ago. And to its right is a giant sea turtle that also lived in the Florida seas 45 million years ago during the Eocene time.
Right here. Okay, excellent. All right. Well, I guess let's get ourselves a little bit dry. Let's start moving out of the water. Okay, and we're going to stop right about here. Okay, and we're going to look this way. And why is this stop really important here, Bruce?
Yeah, this stop is really important because based on the kinds of fossil animals that we have preserved in Florida during what's called the Oligocene about 25 million years ago, we find animals that used to live on land called Oriya Dots. If you can zoom in on the Oriya Dot, we can take perfect. So these
Sorry.
That's okay. So these are animals that are known from elsewhere in North America. If you go collecting fossils out in Nebraska or South Dakota, Oreodonts are everywhere. And what we know is that Oreodonts came in from North America, migrated to the southeast, and they began to live in the ancient Florida peninsula. So the Oreodonts that lived in Florida 25 million years ago are the first evidence of life on land and the beginning of the formation of the Florida peninsula.
And that's a close-up of it right now, right?
It is, and it's an animal. It's a herbivore, so it was a plant eater, and it's its own extinct family, but we can say it's closely related to modern sheep and pigs and what are called cloven-foot kinds of hoofed mammals.
Neat. All right, well, let's keep on moving, I guess, to a time where there was a little bit more diversity of mammals, different kinds of land mammals. So let's start over here. I'm going to look this way, okay? And, well, this animal that I have right in front of me, it actually reminds me a lot of a rhino. Is that right, Bruce?
That's correct. That's a rhinoceros. It's about 10 million years old.
Oh, that's very cool. So, wait, so does that mean, where did rhinos originate then? Like, where do rhinos originally come from? Actually, why don't we ask our audience, does anyone have any idea, where did rhinos originate? Like, where did they come from? Let's see, I'll give you guys a couple of seconds here. I see Africa. Yeah, that's a good guess here. Let's see. Lots of Africa. Okay, good. All right. Well, Bruce, did rhinos come from Africa? Oh, I saw one Americas, one Asia. Good. North America, maybe Florida. Okay, excellent.
Yep.
All right, Bruce, where did they originate?
So the correct answer is that rhinoceroses that we know today, their ancestors originated in North America during the Eocene, about 45 or 50 million years ago. And they spread throughout North America, and periodically they migrated across the Bering Land Bridge between Alaska and Siberia into Eurasia. And that's why we find rhinoceroses in the old world, like in Africa, whereas they continue to exist in Africa today, but they became extinct in North America about 5 million years ago. This rhinoceros right here is really interesting. It's called Tillie Oestrus. It's about 10 million years old, and we know based on the chemistry of its teeth that it ate grass, so it was a grazer.
Very cool. And I see right here, like there's this like big predator trying to eat something. Does anyone want to take a guess of like what is the small little animal that this big predator is trying to eat? I'm gonna enlarge it so we could see it a little bit closer. Any guesses? What is this large predator trying to eat? Okay, I see a bird, a deer, a horse, three-toed horse. That's very specific. Horses, bear dog, wolf, deer, or dog. All right, Bruce, what are we seeing here?
Yeah, on the right is a tiny horse. That's an adult, full-grown horse, but it was of small stature that lived in Florida 18 million years ago. And the cool thing about it is if you look at its toes, it has little hooves. And it didn't have just one toe like we have today. It had actually multiple, 3 toes. And you can see 2 of the toes in the front, the left front and the left hind limb with the horse hoof in the middle. So this animal is definitely a horse. It's called Parahippus. It's well known in Florida. Parahippus, the side-toed horse.
Cool. All right. So I guess let's continue on. And wait a minute. So I see something right in front of us here that actually reminds me a lot of a dinosaur. And we did say that there weren't any dinosaurs in this room. It reminds me of a velociraptor or something like that. So what are we seeing right in front, right here, Bruce?
Yeah, so it's an animal called a terror bird. This animal stood about 7 feet tall when its neck was extended, and it was a flightless bird that was a top predator in the ecosystem. Look at its beak. That thing could have eaten whatever it wanted to. It was likely fast running, run down its prey, probably ancient horses or other animals, other plant-eating animals that lived in Florida during the time. And the cool thing about this particular specimen is that it relates to animals that originated in South America and then migrated across the formation of the land bridge of Panama after about 5 million years ago. And that's why we find remains of terror birds in Florida during the fossil record.
And is this a real fossil?
Yeah, good point. So most of what we try to put on display in the exhibit, the 500 specimens that you mentioned at the beginning of this tour, is the real deal. They represent the real deal. But the problem with Titanus, this animal's scientific name is Titanus, or the terror bird. We only have bits and pieces, tiny fragments of the animal. So we had our artists sculpt and put back together what this animal would have looked like, based on similar animals that we see in the fossil record in South America. So this is a bronze sculpture of the terror bird.
Very cool. Okay. Well, let's continue, and wait a minute. I also see a big animal right in front of us, so let's start moving towards it. And this is actually, I have to say, probably my favorite display in the fossil hall. And let's just move right in front of it. Okay, and this animal definitely reminds me of a dinosaur, but it is definitely not one. And what is it, Bruce?
Yeah, so I should say that most people, when they come into the museum and they want to see the dinosaur, they think about this because it's big and it sort of looks ferocious. It has big claws, etc. But no, it's not a dinosaur. Remember, I told you that there are no dinosaurs in Florida because dinosaurs had been extinct for 20 million years when we get the first fossils in Florida. This is a 2 million year old gigantic ground sloth that we know lived in Florida during this time because we've excavated its remains from many fossil localities in Florida. And the cool thing about this animal is, like the terror bird, it originated in South America and crossed the Panama land bridge about 2 million years ago, and that's when we find remains after that time in sediments in Florida. And it's really interesting, if you can pan down to the bottom, it had a giant claw. And actually, one of our presidents, Thomas Jefferson, was an amateur paleontologist, and he studied this animal called Megalonyx, Megalonyx. And Megalonyx means gigantic claw, and you can see a bronze reconstruction of that of that claw from this gigantic ground sloth in the display in the front of the skeleton.
Cool.
All these animals came across Panama in an event called the Great American Biotic Interchange that scientists know about, that resulted from the formation of the Isthmus of Panama, or what we call the Panamanian Land Bridge.
Cool. And these animals here, they remind me of armadillos.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a giant animal called a glyptodon. It also came northward from South America, and glyptodons and armadillos are closely related. Sloths, armadillos, and glyptodons are all in a large group of mammals called edentates. And we see a diversity of edentates in the fossil record in Florida.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's keep on moving, and let's actually revisit one of the animals that we already saw, but they've actually changed a bit since last we saw them, and it's this one that I have right in front of us. So what are we looking at right now, Bruce?
Yeah, the skeleton right there is of an Ice Age horse from a fossil locality that we have south of Tampa called the Lycée Shelpet. There's a beautiful photograph of it, and it, for all intents and purposes, looks very similar to the modern horse. It's very different from the Parahippus that we saw that was 18 million years old. This fossil horse from Florida is about 1.5 million years old, and it's about the size of a large donkey or small modern day horse, and it's a full-grown adult. And based on the shape of its teeth, we know that it has zebra-like features. So actually, if we were to reconstruct this Ice Age horse from Florida, this 1.5 million year old horse, it probably would have been reconstructed with zebra stripes on it. So yet another thing that we know is that zebras, although we find them in Africa today, probably originated in North America during the Ice Age, about 1 to 2 million years ago.
Wait, so does that also mean that, so wait, did horses also originate in North America? Let's ask our audience. Let's see what they think. I think we might be giving them some clues here. Let's see, what do you guys all think? Where did horses originate? I'll give you some time here to give me a couple of answers. I see yes, lots of yes, North America, Asia, Spain, okay, North America. All right, so is that right? Did horses also originate in North America?
They did, just like rhinoceroses.
Oh, we actually have a little map here.
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool.
So the common misconception is that during historical times, the Spanish introduced horses to North America. That's correct, but it has nothing to do with the fossil record. We know that fossils existed in North America and were native to our continent from about 50 million years ago until they became extinct in North America about 10,000 years ago. So there were no horses when or there was just a short period of time when humans came into Florida and there were horses. But for most of the time after that time, when you had human occupation in Florida and North America, there were no horses. They were reintroduced, so to speak, by the Spanish about 500 years ago.
Cool. All right. Well, we already talked a little bit about a bird, which was the terror bird. So this bird right here reminds me more like it's not giant. Like, is this like an example of a bird that we still have around today?
Yes, it is. This is about a 1.5 or 2 million year old diving bird called a cormorant. And cormorants are common around the shores of Florida today. And the cool thing about this particular fossil is that it was found with over 100 other skeletons, all in one fossil locality. And it looks like these animals all died in some geologic instant. And the paleontologist who studied this, which is one of our former PhD students, Steve Emsley, speculated this animal either died by a gigantic storm during this time, or maybe even by red tide, which certainly is of relevance today.
All right. So let's take a look at another beautiful display that we have that has lots of carnivores. Okay, we've talked a lot about land mammals, herbivores. Let's look at some carnivores. What do we have here, Bruce?
Yeah, this is a beautiful display of the variety or the diversity of flesh-eating mammals, the carnivores, that we find in the fossil record. And these are truly beautiful specimens. Not the turtle on the left, I'm talking about the skulls in the center of this frame. And they show, if you look at their teeth, a variety of shapes of those teeth. And paleontologists know that those teeth were adapted for different functions. Some of these carnivores had stabbing teeth, others had slicing teeth, and others had crushing teeth.
What's this big one right here?
That's a giant animal that is related to panthers and lions today.
Wow, so we actually did have panthers and lions then too.
Lion-like animals, yes.
Wow.
But the cool thing in the upper left that most people are interested or have heard of is called the Saber-Tooth Tiger. It's actually not a tiger, it's a saber-tooth cat. And you can see its giant saber, which was used for stabbing its prey, probably for piercing the thick flesh of something like elephants.
All right. Okay, so I guess now let's travel to about 14,000 years ago, near the end of the Pleistocene, where one of Earth's most prolific predators was first evidenced in the fossil record in Florida. Now I'm going to ask all of you, does anyone know what predator am I talking about? Okay, so as I move forward, I'll give you some time for some guesses and see. Okay, so here we go. Kind of have a, oh man, there's a spoiler here. Okay, well, let's see. So who am I talking about, Bruce?
Humans.
Yes.
Native Americans, humans that began to populate the North American continent after the last ice age, probably as early as 14,000 to about 10,000 years ago, when the humans coexisted with some of the large animals that lived during the last ice age, like mammoths and mastodons and horses and all those giant carnivores that you saw. And we know that there's direct evidence of humans hunting on some of what's called the megafauna, which just means the giant animals like mammoths and mastodons. They're butchering some of these large elephant-like animals in this display.
Very cool. Okay, so and the name of this location again, what is it called?
It's called the Osceola River. Or the fossil locality is called the Osceola River Kill Site.
Okay, and that's in Florida.
It is. It's up in the Great Bend, in between the peninsula and the panhandle of Florida.
Cool. And do we have any other like very significant dig sites? And it's, you know, do we have any like near Gainesville?
We do. We actually have an active fossil site. Well, it's not active right now because it's closed down because of the virus. But when things open back up, and before that occurred, we collected 5 to 6 million-year-old fossils at a site in Levy County, only 45 minutes southwest of the University of Florida. And it has fabulous fossils that indicate the kinds of animals, both herbivores and carnivores, that lived in Florida, what's now Florida, during what's called the late Miocene, about 5 to 6 million years ago. We have large elephants, we have carnivorous mammals, horses, and a lot of other animals that tell us what life was like in prehistoric Florida. And this is the locality that we're actively working. It's a research site. And once things get back to normal, we'll go out and we'll reopen the Montbrook Fossil Site, and we'll actually call for volunteers to help us at that time.
Oh, wow. So definitely people need to be looking at our website to see when we open that up, because that definitely is an amazing experience that we hope to open up really, really soon. Well, I guess this one right here, this was going to be our final stop. But before we start taking some questions from our audience, I actually wanted to give Bruce a chance if he had any final thoughts of our tour and what we were able to experience today.
Yeah, this is a unique opportunity for you to understand the fossil record, the prehistoric life in Florida. This Hall of Florida Fossils has taken you on a 45 million year journey through the prehistoric fossil record. It allows us to understand the changes in life and land that we call Florida today, and to hopefully better understand our place on Earth.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I guess it's time to take some questions now. So let's see.
So Dr. McFadden, thank you so much for being with us today. Our first question comes from Rafa, who asks, if you find fossils, how do you know if they're from the same animal or organism?
You have to understand the anatomy, and whether the pieces go together, so to speak. It's just a matter of having to learn the anatomical features of particular species and whether particular parts that you'll find as fragments would go together.
Lamia is curious, how are fossils made?
Yeah, so fossils are made by water percolating through the bone and depositing minerals that harden the fossils. And once they become hardened, the process is called fossilization. And that's how you form fossils. It's by minerals that are dissolved in the groundwaters that are then deposited in the bones or shells and harden the original material to become fossilized.
Grant is wondering, what is the first dispersal of rhinoceros into Eurasia?
During the Miocene, about 20 million years ago. That's a good question. I'm trying to think if there was an earlier one, but from memory, that's a more complicated question because rhinos actually, I'm going to say that the first dispersal of the Native American rhinos in the Old World occurred about 20 million years ago.
Amanda asks, do you have a favorite fossil in the fossil hall?
Wow, that's a great question. There's so many wonderful fossils. I guess I like the Ice Age horse because I study fossil horses and how they changed over time. So I guess either the Parahippus, the 18-million-year-old horse, or the Ice Age horse are the two that I like the best.
Jeanette says she knows you played a tremendous role in designing the fossil hall. Can you please provide a little more context as to why it was designed the way it was?
Well, we wanted people to come in and have a walk through geologic time to understand the changes that have occurred in Florida over the past 45 million years. So it was a deliberate design feature of a timeline. We wanted to attract people into the fossil hall, and what better way to do it through the beautiful six jaws of the extinct sharks. So that is an attractor that got the public into the fossil hall, and then once they got into the fossil hall, we wanted them to walk through 45 million years of Florida prehistory through a walk through time. So that was the design strategy for the hall.
Bill asks, if we're walking around our home or hiking somewhere within Florida, and we think we find a fossil, who is the best person or organization to contact?
Yeah, I mean, so you can send them to, you can say if there's a paleontologist at a local university, best thing to do is to take digital photos using your iPhone, using your smartphone, put a scale next to it, maybe a quarter or a ruler, so we have a sense of how big it is. And you can send it to us at the museum, or you can ask local paleontologists at some of your universities. There are paleontologists at different universities throughout Florida, including, of course, the University of Florida.
All right, Bruce, and we have time for just two more questions. Our next one comes from Scott, who asks, what other large mammals were eaten by early humans in Florida?
Yeah, so for sure we know that the large elephant-like animals were eaten. They may have eaten horses. There's evidence elsewhere in North America of human hunting by horses. That's a really good question. We don't have direct evidence of actually spear points in other animals, but I should say there is direct evidence of a spear point in a skull of a fossil bison or buffalo-like animal. So they also hunted bison during the time when they coexisted with these large mammals between about 14,000 and 10,000 years ago.
And Bruce, our last question comes from Elsa, who's 8 years old, and asks, where is a fossil digging hotspot besides Montbrook?
In Florida or elsewhere?
Maybe you could answer both quickly.
Okay, so right now, in terms of what we're doing, we like to collect from Montbrook, but you can collect fossils along the beaches if you want to, if you live close to the shore. There's also great fossil collecting along the Peace River. You can get a canoe and you can float down the Peace River and look for fossils in the beds along fossils. You can scoop up the beds and find fossil shark's teeth and other things like that. So there are lots of places to find fossils in Florida. And my gosh, if you were to talk about other places to find fossils in North America, there are hundreds of locations, and it would be hard to just go through all of them in the limited time that we have.
All right, Dr. McFadden, thank you so much. At this point, I'm going to hand things over to Stephanie for some closing remarks.
Thanks, Brian. I just want to say thank you, everyone. Wow, what a great trip today to the Florida Museum 360 tour. We can't wait for the museum to open back up soon and invite all of you to come see what we've got here and experience it firsthand. We hope you've enjoyed this experience, and we would love for you to take a moment to fill out the survey at the end of today's tour. A special thank you to our fearless leaders, Alberto and Dr. McFadden, for taking us along. You can learn more about the Florida Museum of Natural History and the Scientist in Every Florida School program by visiting the websites you see on your screen. On both sites, you'll also find additional ways in which to engage with us. We also have a recording of this program that you can find at the UF Thompson Earth Systems YouTube channel. Thank you again from the Florida Museum and Scientist in Every Florida School. Have a great day and goodbye.